into it. So, hello everyone. My name is Jaime Zamora. I am here with Kyle and William. We are in class MS624 at UAT. We'll be addressing case study slash project where we are talking about leading tech workers. In this particular assignment, we're going to be addressing some of the disc profiles and some of the interactions that really focuses on providing internal facilitation, furnishing external representation, managing ambiguity, and nurturing motivation. So what we've done, we've prepared a couple of scenarios that really kind of dive into this relationships and also particular, I would say, situations that have to be led by a leader. And obviously, we address the different disc profiles that some of these employees have. So in this first scenario, we have an internal facilitation where a long-term project is being impacted by the tension between two team members. One is a loyal veteran who lacks insight into the key aspects of the current project they're working on, while the other one is somewhat on the newer side. He is a new hire that is very confident. He's talented with bold ideas, but poor collaboration skills. And as a leader, the job will be to facilitate the resolution and reignite the momentum of the project. So we got two people that are trying to work together, and you know, based on their skill level and also their seniority, are somewhat not meshing. So you know, I would say the roles right now that we have in place is, as I mentioned, a leader, which is a transformational and a facilitator. We have a veteran employee, which is this profiles is S and C. And then we have a new employee, which does this profile is a DNI. So we'll go ahead and start kind of diving into it with William and Kyle as we kind of walk you through the scenario. So I believe Kyle will be the leader in this particular scenario. William will be the veteran, and I'll be the new hire. So go ahead, Kyle, kick us off.
Awesome. Okay, so I got you guys here. Thanks for making the time. You know, I know we're all really passionate about this project we're working on. I appreciate what each of you are bringing to the team, but there is some friction going on that's clear that is slowing us down. So I just want to work through that today with both of you.
Yeah, I just feel like the pace is getting ahead of our checks and balances. It's getting kind of risky, in my opinion.
I get that, but we can't let caution stop the momentum. William, we need to innovate fast.
Yeah, totally understood, William. Your attention to process has kept us out of trouble before, so you know it's really valuable to pay attention to that. But Jaime, your vision is exactly what's pushing our project forward, and you're right that the innovation is a primary goal of ours. So I want both of you to own different parts of the flow, but so we can come together and merge and find this, you know, common ground. So let's have Jaime lead ideation and early stage prototyping. That's where a lot of that fast innovation happens. And then William will have you review and validate those concepts before they move on to development. We'll also add a weekly, like 30-minute alignment meeting with both of you. That way, nothing moves without your shared input. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, that could work for me. Yeah.
That could work.
Awesome. Yeah, let's move forward with that plan, and we'll check in with each other again next week and see how it's going.
Perfect. All right, guys. So that concludes our scenario. A lot of going on in this particular interaction. So some of the things that we want to go and post margin about are, you know, for example, I would say that how did the leader blend? I would say the coaching from Kyle's perspective. How did he facilitate between, you know, William and I? I think that, you know, in my opinion, Kyle, you really took each other's skills and put them to work, right? So you have somebody that comes with high energy, has a lot of ideas, wants to make a sprint. And then you got William, who, you know, is a veteran, done this, not his first rodeo, probably seen a lot of things go wrong and a lot of things go right, and has a lot of insight. So just having him validate my work, for lack of better words, is definitely a good check and balances where, you know, especially you let the other two people shine. That's what I think went right. What went wrong or could be room for improvement. I know that there's definitely a lot of people that have in organizations. There's a lot of people that always have new ideas that keep close to their chest. Some of the things that I've seen put in place, and it would be would be somewhat of a future proof, or just closing the gap between the two is they have lunch and learns, or they have ideation programs where like, hey, every idea is worth X, right? And if your idea kind of like a Shark Tank moment, or red teaming moment, I believe they call it. And you bring your idea, you present it to leadership once a month, and then they'll kind of pick holes at it. If it's great, then it goes into like somewhat of a business case funding moment. So all those new individuals or even old individuals that have ideas or driven by momentum and the innovation aspects are heard. And also that also puts the veterans in a good spot to take a look at like, hey, this that would be a good idea. So almost like making an event out of it to reduce a lot of that tension. And then also not every innovative idea it's a good idea. Although it's innovative, sometimes I think people get carried away of like, oh, I want to build a rocket, right? Well, that's great, but one, we don't have the budget for the rocket, or two, is not in the main focus for us right now, or it's just it's hard to sell. It will be great to have, but hard to sell. So I think and that's where the veterans kind of come and say, hey, we've seen that kind of ideas. I actually had an idea 10 years ago and it didn't work out because A, B, C, and D. So that kind of helps out from a check balance. That's kind of my take, what I saw. William, what do you think?
Sure. I think as far as a leader, I think Kyle coming in, we were both at odds. We were hitting a stalemate. We had a difference of opinion. It wasn't going well. He kind of stopped us both in our tracks. He had Jaime with more of a assertive DI style. He's coming in strong. He kept his momentum going. He kept my SC kind of profile in check. Just let me finish off his work and make sure it's ready for to be promoted forward. So I mean, I think he stopped us from being at odds with each other, and he encouraged both of us to come back together and work together. And then we're both in a better space afterwards. So I mean, I think he facilitated that quite well in a very neutral way without being offensive to either one. Kind of brought us both together. So I thought that was really good. As far as any kind of negative, um, for efficiency's sake, I guess there's not much more that can be said. I don't have a lot of problems with how it went. So
I thought it was good. I liked how the leader acknowledged each employee's strengths and what they brought to the project, but at the same time, clearly identified the issue that was causing friction. I also like that he kept the project goals in focus, identifying that innovation is important and speed goes along with that, but not at the cost of our checks and balances, which are very important. One of our principles as well. So there was a strong you need to build when you're bringing two people who are sort of at odds in their goals together and trying to cooperate. You need a strong communication, and a review process for there. So, maybe some advice I would give the leaders to introduce a methodology for these employees or a piece of tech or tool to aid them in that communication, because otherwise they might just go off to their own, corners and then continue back down the road they were on before, ignoring the other. So give them a shared workspace, a shared whiteboard, a task logging system so they can check in with each other. But yeah, I like that he said he was going to have those shared meetings and check-ins as well. So to keep things on pace there. So I thought it was awesome.
Nice. Perfect, guys. Yeah, I think that went really well. So it happens a lot, right? You got, a couple folks that are veterans, new guys that are obviously coming in. And then there's somewhat of it bleeds into like, how do we work together kind of moment. So perfect. All right. So switching gears to scenario number 2, a little bit different scenario that we want to address in this exercise. It's more of an external representation and managing high visibility talent. So, from a very high overview, what we're trying to address here is when you have a high performer individual that is doing, that is well recognized, but because it's being pulled in so many ways, or kind of like in that master section that we've talked about, like D1, D2, D3, D4, is somewhat of a D4 or a D3 where they're doing really good, but then start missing the smaller details because it's being pulled in so many ways. So how to correct that as a leader, right? Like how do I tell somebody that, hey, you're doing really good and you're very well recognized, but this is some of the things that need to be addressed. That's kind of the scenario that we're looking to put in place. So that at its context, an employee has been instrumental in a public facing success and brings creativity, innovates ideas. However, they disregard for resources planning and process adherence causes friction with stakeholders and disrupts the timeline project. So, once again, although you're walking on water, you can still sink, right? So the roles are, we got a leader who is structured yet flexible, more of on the DC profile. Then you have a high profile employee, which this profile is I and DI. And then, we will take a look at and postmortem after obviously the interaction. So I'll go ahead and in this particular scenario, I'll be the leader. And then we're going to have William as the employee. And we'll then go ahead and do a postmortem. All right, guys. So here, let's green light go. So William, I wanted to start by saying that your impact is well recognized. The organization values your visibility and credibility, but we need to talk about balancing that with delivery. William.
Yeah. I've been pulled in so many directions lately. Doing my best to get it done the way I've always been doing it, but I know I missed a few things. It's just I feel like I'm everywhere I'm supposed to be sometimes. Just so many projects going on at once. I mean, it seems like the more useful you are, the more you're needed, and it's sometimes hard for me to say no. I just want to deliver, but
I get it.
I'm at a
Yeah, I get it.
crossroad.
Yeah, I've been there, man. I've been there, William, and that's where we'll get to fix it. I want to use remain the key voice. Externally, you do really well at that, but also, a strong engine internally, right? Here's the framework. We'll build a shared tech resource tracker, set up a biweekly check-ins with you and your dev marketing leads, and prioritize based on visibility and execution. So all I'm trying to do here is just bring a little bit of structure for you, William. I know there's a lot of things that kind of fall in the cracks, but just, we have this itemized, we'll keep track of it.
Yeah, that actually helps. Actually, I've been trying to manage all this on my own. It's hard for me to say no sometimes. I just want to just take it all on, but it has been overwhelming. I have to admit.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is the way you get the support you need without, losing your spark, which we need. Your win, and also, we get to finish projects with very high success. I think at the end of the day, not everything has to be super important, William. We'll go ahead and kind of bring a little bit of criteria, what to work on first, second, and third, and hopefully that'll give us a good overall output. What do you say?
Sounds awesome to me. I'm ready. So.
Perfect. All right. Cut. All right. Well, that I feel like it went pretty well. It happens, I wouldn't say too often, but which you would want to. You want high performers always, shining bright for the company. But Kyle, what do you think from a postmortem? We want to start and say, what are your thoughts on things that went right and wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I've done a lot of goal setting meetings with employees like that. And I thought the leader did a good job, starting with validation. What have you been doing well? But, here's where we've had some friction. You've missed a few deadlines here and there. We can take a look at the stats, but, and, you show them where they messed up and reaffirming, what they've been doing well and how we're going to, get that tracker onto goal. So I felt the leader was very supportive in that. And then the employee was very open to I do need some help and honest about where they were struggling. I've been focused on so many things. I might have missed a few of my key deliverables, but, the leader acknowledged that they were on, goal with the company, very driven to meet their expectations and stuff, so that they found this common, way to support him in a framework, to move forward, to make sure that those goals will start to reach on track, and then, by the next check-in, be better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Will, what do you think?
As a leader, I could imagine myself appreciating you, coming in. You didn't just focus on the problems. You acknowledged that, I have been a good employee. I'm an I background. I'm very, it's very important to me to know how everyone feels about me, how I get along, how I'm valued. And you did say, you're a valued employee. We really like what you've done. We noticed you've had some difficulties lately. So I appreciate you talking about the good before the problems. It gave me a little reassurance that, we're working, I didn't lose my reputation in the process of all this, you know. So I like that approach from yourself. And, I think as an I, you have to acknowledge it's not just about reputation. You got to get the job done too. So from my perspective, me getting that redirection, even though I'm valued, I need to get on board with the program. And you gave me the structure to get that done. So, I think we started with a problem, we're ending with a goal and solution. So I think it went pretty well.
I think that even Ferraris need an oil change, right? And that's something to be mindful of. I think you want your high performers always performing, and but performing takes a lot of work. And if you address it from, hey, I know you're busy, we clearly see that, right? Because the output that you're putting is amazing. You probably need some help, right? You probably most likely to maintain that level of performance, you
Mhm.
probably need some help. Let me help you out here. This is where I
Right.
see from a high level where I can structureize you and maybe perhaps add some value to your output. But yeah, very hey, like I don't want to break what's working, but there's some things that need to fine tuning. So that's why I'm saying
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. Like even Ferraris need an oil change. That's
Right.
kind of how I see it. So all right,
Well
perfect.
said.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe more
Yeah.
often. Maybe more
Maybe more
often.
often. They're more expensive too. So all good. All right. So I would say that that kind of wraps up our scenario two. We're gonna go ahead and handle ambiguity, which is our next scenario, scenario number three, which is leading through unclear changes. Just to kind of level set, from a high level, the organization has been mandated a full cloud ML transition over the 12 months. The IT was not consulted and is now responsible for the execution. This transformation, is a big deal, and obviously it's going to take a lot of maintaining, a lot of uptime and security. There is confusion, there's frustration, and also fear among the team. Right, your role is to lead through uncertainty, foster buy-in, and build trust. So, overall, and I feel like this happens way too often. There's somebody committed about this big initiative, and now the team is just the execution of the team is just getting briefed on, and they're responsible for it. So that's kind of what we're talking about here today. So we'll have a leader, which is very realistic, supportive. It's an S and C profile, and then we have team member, which is this profile is a C and a D, and then we'll go somewhat into a post mortem. I'll say, William, if you don't mind being the leader, and then
Sure,
Kyle,
sure.
you go ahead and be the team member. That'd be great.
Perfect.
All right, listen, I know this decision landed hard. We weren't in the room when it was made, but we're the team responsible for making it work. And I know that feels like pressure.
Yeah, man, it's chaos. It's not just a little pressure. We're responsible for the whole dang thing. We're being asked to maintain uptime while ripping out our entire foundation to move to a new system. There's just no clear roadmap.
You're right. You're right. That's why we're building the roadmap ourselves, actually. Agile isn't chaos, it's evolution. We'll define sprint goals based on real needs. Every week we'll regroup and adjust. Listen, you'll flag blockers. I'll elevate them to leadership. We'll co-own the process from the inside out. This team has the tools. We just need the rhythm.
If you kind of look at it that way, as if we're going to build the roadmap on how to do this best, then that kind of frames it in a different way. If we're building this on our terms, then maybe I can work with that. We can break down sort of what we should do with that first sprint, and then we can set the terms on how this transition will go best for our team.
Perfect. Exactly. We're on board.
Very cool.
Perfect. All right. This definitely happens way too often.
Oh
This
yeah.
is this is one of those things where like this is like it was speaking to me, and I think that really does put things on. How do you bring clear, shine some bright light into a very dark room sometimes, especially when people start talking about timelines. This has to be done on, December 5th. There's already like, certain requests or why not around it. Then in this particular scenario, it seems like they have a lot of flexibility on their roadmap, which is good. And also, that allows the resource management. He talked about the sprints. So that definitely, if you are somebody that is on the wheel and, is the driver of that ship, yes, you get tasked with a new location, but you're in charge. You'll still continue to drive your vehicle. You'll be the one recruiting your team, and you'll the one setting up the sprints. And once you do all that analysis, you size the effort, you provide us with an LOE, and a structure. Then it would just translate into a timeline. And that's okay, right? Like that. It sometimes is the sticker shock kind of moment, but when you break it down into how some of those things are going to plan out, I think it does bring some ease into, okay, so this is what we're talking about. So, I think Kyle did a really good job by just bringing that as well. Really making it sound like, hey man, like again, like what's going on? This is not this is not going to be fun. And then William, you just came in like, hey, like we're gonna handle this like any other project, right? We're gonna size this thing. We're gonna do what we do, right? We'll put it on a sprint. We're gonna break it down, and then ultimately this will output what we need, right? So I think that was very straightforward. That's how you empower your team. How could this be better? How can we make this future proof and ultimately improve the process? This fire drills or certain things are just that. I think that some of the things that close communication between your team when this boom moments are happening, that's the prep work that you should be doing all the time, right? Making sure you're checking on your team, make sure make sure you're doing bandwidth analysis. Like, hey, do you have all the people that you need? Having, I would say kickoff moments in the beginning of the year, right? Saying, hey, this is what we're going to be working on. We don't have all the details, but this is the north of the company. We're building AI products or we're building kitchen products, whatever. But the theme is this, right? And then everybody's kind of know what's going on. I definitely think that as a leader and as an organization, this is where keeping people on the known, not on the weeds of things, but on the known goes a long way because everybody's ball to play right now. For example, everybody knows that there's a lot of the political climate. It's somewhat uncertain, and that's not a mystery for anybody in the company. They know that shifting of priorities could happen very quick. But the company has been very transparent, right? Like, hey, this is what we're dealing with. This is what's going on. We're doing this day by day. Expect X or Y at any given moment. So although that's a little bit stressful at the time, but it does keep the teams on the defense when you need them to. So that's kind of what I thought. But William, what do you think?
I think the role of the leader in this case, I think the delivery was a little bit abrupt. I mean, I guess there's a lot of change. You have to, as an S-type personality, he's going to be very steady to the course and whatnot. But I think the delivery was a little abrupt, and obviously the employee was pretty concerned and pretty upset. There wasn't much. I don't know. It's all business. Maybe it needs to be all business sometimes. And I get that. You keep it efficient, but I think the leader could have been a little bit more. Listened a little bit more and then given a little more detail as to the process of how that's all going to take place. I mean, he outlined it a little bit, but just given a little more detail might have given the employee a little more reassurance if he was more of a like a CD type profile also. Just focusing a little bit more on the process and just hearing him out. I think it went okay. I think it went pretty well. Yeah, overall.
Perfect. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, you guys really nailed it. I like your assessment. Just to add a little, I like how the leader really turned it around into empowering the team member with like letting them know like it's not just a command from above that we now have to facilitate, but this is our project and we're going to make the roadmap ourselves. So if you have some input, we can take that into account and adjust things. But like feeling a sense of ownership is so important. It's like the best teams I've been on were the ones where like they made us feel like it was our project and we could decide what to do with it. And we were sort of creating it and in control of things while it aligns with the goals of the overarching company. Like that really empowers the employees to feel, incredibly helpful and like they're making a difference rather than like you're just a slave, a coding slave that, is going to do what I say to do. So I think
Yeah,
that's really helpful in scenarios like this.
I agree. I agree. Like turning frustration into ownership, right? And I think that's
Mm.
exactly what you guys did. Like, hey, like this might be frustrating, but what would you do if you were the CEO of this problem? What would you do? And then that becomes the ownership, and they start spinning ideas. So absolutely, no, that's perfect. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, William. This kind of puts us at the end of the scenarios with the next one that we're about to address, which is scenario 4, which is nurturing motivation and sustaining morale in a long-term project. So at a high level, months into a transformational effort with no visible end and limited public wins, team morale is down. People feel disconnected from progress and unsure if their work is even going to make a difference. Your job is maintaining momentum, and obviously kind of ignite that purpose, sustain the emotional and creative investment, at all times, right? So you just pretty much, hey, we've been dancing to the same song for a long time, and although it's our favorite song, it does get boring after a while. So how do you keep that tune kind of hitting those notes as you need to? So from a role perspective, we have a leader. He's a visionary. He's emotionally intelligent, and his profile is IIS. Team member, disc profile is D2, D3, so they're pretty good, but they're discouraged. So we'll go ahead and address this scenario. Um, I would say, Kyle, do you mind being the leader, and then I'll play the team member, and
Sure.
then
Yeah.
William, you'll be paying attention and giving us a good feedback at the
Yeah.
end, sir. All
Sounds
right,
good. Sounds good.
all right, perfect. All right, Kyle, kick us off.
Cool. Here we go. I know it's been several months into this transformation effort. I just want to check in with how everyone's doing, not just with your tasks, but energy wise. I know this work is heavy. We haven't seen, a lot of wins lately, but I can see how committed you've all been. So let's hear from you guys. How have you been feeling?
Honestly, it's been training. We've been putting a lot of effort, but it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere. Like the post looks really far right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I can feel that there's just not a lot of, markers to kind of show what we've been doing lately and how, this transition has been successful. So, maybe what we can do is hold a couple biweekly reviews about the work that we've been doing and the small wins that we have been achieving. So we can spotlight those small victories and showcase these things. They're not quite the same as when we were back in full production, the wins we would see, but ignoring them lets us all, kind of forget what's happening. So we can do a monthly retro with a celebration momentum. So we can highlight and celebrate those wins that we are getting. So I would love it if you would co-lead this next sprint, and you've got that instinct and that drive to help the team kind of find this momentum and refocus what we are looking at as these victories. Let's put that front and center. How does that sound?
That would help. That would help. Having something to aim for, and recognition obviously, goes a long way for the team. I think my team members need that. That emotional high five goes a long way, and it makes a difference, boss. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll get back to that full production when this transition is done and be back to hitting those epic milestones. But yeah, for now, just marking those mile markers is really going to help. So let's build morale like we build our tech, sprint by sprint and change by change and evaluating and moving forward. Awesome.
Thank you, boss. Sounds like a plan. All right. Cut. All right, guys. William, what do you think? Give us your feedback,
Well,
sir. What went right? What
uh,
went wrong?
okay, as far as what went right, I think so the leader's visionary, he's visionary, emotionally intelligent, is a high emotional IQ. I can definitely sense that. And he definitely showed a lot of empathy, I thought. He checked in with you as an employee. You're obviously very discouraged. You're kind of like losing your momentum, losing your energy. Again, leader's empathic about that. He's kind of clarifying a strategy for dealing with that and starting to celebrate some wins, not just the big wins at the end of the, the fiscal year or something like that, but celebrating the smaller ones along the way, and then even looking back and celebrating where you came from and where you got to. Kind of just bring it down into digestible chunks that are realistic for the just to build the enthusiasm and get you on board with pacing again at a higher rate. So I think that all went very well. Again, with anything, I think giving more detail as to how you're going to do that without overloading the person's fine. But I think right now the more important thing is motivating the guy. You know, getting him on board, getting the hype up, getting the energy up, getting him getting him moving again, and enthusiastic about the project. So yeah, you could have given more detail maybe. Obviously, you could work that out after the fact and follow up with that. But I think you hit on the main points of what was important here. Again, was being emotionally intelligent and being an I as well, valuing the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. You know, when processes change, we sometimes forget that that can also change our short-term goals. Even if the long-term goals will stay completely the same, you know, the minor things might be different. So you have to, you know, evaluate and how you evaluate and recognize the short term is just as important as recognizing those long milestones. So, you know, it's important to review that process and definitely when you're feeling the feedback from your employees, like, okay, we can sense morale is low. We need to, you know, get that response. You know, okay, what exactly is it that's making you all struggle, and how can we then respond to that? So I think that was a good
Yeah,
example.
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think this happens, I have a thing at work where I usually say that, hey man, same party, different DJ, or I would say something along the lines where, you know, we're building relationships, projects many, relationships only few. And I think it's super important, right? Because there's always going to be a project. The company will need so many things. And then you'll have people come and go, right? But it's really truly the family or the relationship or the culture that you're building internally that helps you output some of that stuff. So those emotional high fives, definitely are needed. And then, the momentum, right? You definitely want to make sure that if there's any burnouts that are happening within sprints or development, even though, especially when the projects are super long, um, you know, celebrating anything is super important. Just the fact that I think, in some of the classes they talked about, hey, this is the person that solved the most bugs this week, even though debugging is not going to get the product, launch or anybody's going to see it, but like who debugged the most, right? Or, and some of those like debug killer, whatever, like making it fun, making it funny, dancing in the rain, right? That's another one that I
There you
use. Hey,
go.
guys,
Exactly. That's a
we're
good idea.
dancing on the
Mm,
rain here because
yeah.
we got some, right? So yeah, I agree. I think that's something like that emotional IQ when things are going down, because everybody's gonna celebrate when things are going right, right? But when
Yeah,
things are going
absolutely.
wrong is when really it matters. Go ahead, William. What
Mm.
were you gonna say?
No, I was agreeing with you. I think yeah, it's easy to celebrate when you're flying high. I mean,
Yeah. I learned this the hard way, and I'll leave you guys with this, and this kind of somewhat concludes our presentation. But this is a quick anecdote, post-mortem moment. When I worked in sales, one of the most discouraging things to do is calling, because when you call, the nature of getting a sale or somebody to accept your appointment that you're trying to set, it can be tricky, right? It's a numbers game. So what our leadership did was, play like a no bingo, or like what are the excuses bingo? Oh, not today,
so,
or I gotta check with my wife, or
right,
and you just made it fun, right? And they knew that at some point you were gonna get a yes, but you just made the no part, the rejection part,
right,
fun between the team. And that kind of kept it, that then people were just more encouraged to make more calls, because if they made more calls, there were more chances to win the bingo. So, it was one of those things that it turned bad into a right, or just made it fun for the rest of the team to overcome some of those challenges. So I think that's super important. It goes a very long way. So guys, thank you so much for your participation. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you,
everybody for
guys.
watching. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome.